Your chairman appeared to compare reform to the Nazis in a recent tweet. Are reform like the Nazis?
He didn't actually say anything at all. He just put a link to a Wikipedia page of who else had had golden historical badges. And let's be clear, reform has got much bigger problems. On Friday, they had the leader of the party in Wales sentenced to prison for 10 years for spying on our country for Russia. I think that's a much bigger deal than a tweet.
Your former colleague, Suella Braverman, has said that Kevin Hollinrake got this wrong. Will you take this opportunity to condemn that tweet from your chairman?
I think given that when Sarah Pochin said she didn't like seeing black and brown faces on TV, Nigel Farage refused to apologise. I'm not going to apologise for a tweet that was made in jest. There's far too much time spent on silly things like tweets at a time when we've got a budget on Wednesday. Your viewers are out there really worried about what's going to be coming, more tax rises. As leader of the opposition, my job is to focus on Labour. People can make jokes on Twitter, that's fine. Right now, I've got to focus on what's going on out there.
You're clearly not a fan of the Employment Rights Bill. At the moment, do you think that employees in this country are treated fairly?
I do think that we have a lot of rights in our country, much higher standards than pretty much any other country in the world. What we don't have enough of right now is jobs and growth. What we have seen since Labour came into office is unemployment rising every single month. And this bill is going to kill more jobs. A lot of businesses are saying, this is just too much. It's going to cost businesses £5 billion a year. And that's the government's own estimates. They should just scrap it. It's got lots of terrible measures in it. Banter bans. Someone called it a right to woke, which was hilarious just downstairs. The right to roam for unions into companies that have sort of 20 people. That's ridiculous. They should scrap it.
In one word, do you support the rise in minimum wage?
As business secretary, I was one of the people who increased the minimum wage. But what businesses are telling me right now is that it's too high and they're not hiring. You can put the minimum wage to £100 an hour. If businesses can't afford it, then no one gets jobs. We need to focus right now on creating jobs. Young people out there are really suffering. Lowest graduate recruitment we've ever had. Let's get people into jobs as quickly as we can.
So that one word would be, no, you don't support the rise in minimum wage.
Well, I don't know what they're raising it to. Yes, when the minimum wage has been too low, I personally, as business secretary, have raised it. But if businesses are saying we're actually closing down because we can't afford it, then I think we need to listen to them. It's not government that creates jobs, it's business. Government can raise it to whatever it is, but if business can't afford it, who's going to pay? No one. And young people don't get jobs.
We have a ballooning benefits bill and a productivity crisis in this country. Is there an issue with laziness and entitlement in Britain?
We need to get people back to work. There are a lot of people who can work, who don't work. Some of them choose not to. Others think that they can't for low-level health conditions like anxiety, mild depression. Actually, work would be good for them. We found about £9 billion of savings for that alone. But the welfare bill right now is ballooning. A lot of people are exploiting the system. We've seen sickfluencers on Instagram telling people how to game the system. No more in-face assessments. Let's bring that back. Let's cut the welfare bill down to something more manageable.
Talking of that ballooning welfare bill, is the triple lock still a good use of taxpayer money?
Yes, it is. The triple lock is conservative policy. Right now, we have people who have paid into their pensions, and actually making changes to this triple lock doesn't do anything for growth. It's just cutting and slicing the pie in a different way. Let's actually focus on growth measures. We get growth by getting people into work. Let's get Britain working again.
One recent poll put the Conservatives on 14 seats at the next election. It seems as though you're struggling to build momentum. What mistakes do you think you've made in your first months as leader of the opposition?
Well, if you're referring to the poll on Saturday, I was actually astonished that it was published. It was from ages ago. It's not a recent poll. And what we need to do is make sure people actually understand what's going on. It is quite clear that a lot of the public out there are very frustrated. We lost the election last year. We have to acknowledge that we made mistakes. What we're also seeing is Labour making a lot of mistakes and people looking at protest parties like Reform, like the Greens. It's going to take some time for them to start looking at Conservatives again. I have said that again and again. But what we're doing in the meantime is making sure that we have a plan that will work in government. Because what Labour is doing is leaving a huge mess to clean up. No one else is going to even know where to start except us. Thank you.
Well, let's speak to the woman who brought us that interview. Yes, our very own political correspondent, Olivia Utley, joins us. Olivia, very combative, coming out fighting from Kemi Badenoch.
Well, absolutely. So on that issue of Kevin Hollinrake seemingly comparing the Reform Party to the Nazis, Kemi Badenoch made the decision not to apologise. She talked about Nigel Farage not apologising on behalf of Sarah Pochen, and she said that the country has more important things to think about, which got us on to the budget. Now, the subject of this interview was a speech that the Leader of the Opposition was making at the CBI conference today, in which she basically stuck the knife into the employers' rights bill. She said in that interview and in her speech that she believes that employees basically have enough rights in this country, and the Employment Rights Bill, which was originally brought in by Angela Rayner, who is now obviously gone, but it does look as though it's going to go through pretty much in full. She's worried that that's going to tie up businesses in even more red tape and make it harder and harder to employ people. We talked there, as you saw, about the ballooning benefits bill, which is sort of the other side of that coin, if you like, and she did go as far as to say that some people are trying to scam the system. Traditionally, politicians are wary of suggesting that their voters are trying to make money where they don't deserve it. But Kemi Badenoch did talk about those sickfluencers on TikTok who are helping people get the maximum benefits they can possibly get. But then when I asked her about the triple lock, which is actually one of the biggest points of the enormous welfare bill in this country, we now know that the pension is going to rise by over 4%, so that's higher than inflation, to match wages. She said that the triple lock is a good policy. It's a good Conservative policy. So couldn't quite understand where she was heading on that. But she is certainly coming out fighting in these days leading up to the budget.
And of course, on a point of fact, it's not really Conservative Party policy. It became Conservative Party policy because of the coalition. It was Lib Dem Party policy in the 2010 election, and it's one of the things that was agreed to in the coalition agreement. Ever since then, the Tories have claimed it was their idea. It was never their idea. It was the Lib Dems, as many eye-catching but perhaps less than fiscally sound policies are. Olivia, thanks indeed for joining us, and that excellent interview with the Leader of His Majesty's most loyal opposition.
A tweet made in jest. Nothing to see here. Well, let's see if that's the case now. My next guest, I'm joined by the Global Affairs Advisor at Reform UK, and that's Dr. Alan Mendoza. Dr. Mendoza, a pleasure to have you on the company. There's no way of sugarcoating this question. I'm just going to ask you, are you a Nazi?
No, surprisingly, Martin, I'm not a Nazi, and I think it's a singularly advised tweet from the chairman of a Conservative party to be doing. This is a kind of antic you expect from, the far left. And for him to have done it and then not have apologised, it wasn't done in jest. I'm sorry. You had to actually have done some serious research to get to that rather ridiculous idea that some Nazi gold coin was similar to what the Reform Party is putting out on a pin badge. I mean, it's just pathetic, and I don't understand why Kemi Badenoch's defending, and I don't understand why the tweet was put up and not been taken down since.
It's also worth pointing out that a plethora of football clubs, if you know anything about the sport, have had black kit with gold badges. Top of that list is Maccabi Tel Aviv. Yeah, that famous fascist football club from Israel. That's, of course, the biggest Jewish football club on the planet. So it's moronic to say this is singularly linked to Reform UK. But I want to ask you about the degree, the level, the standard of political debate here. We've almost come to expect this from the political left. You're a fascist, according to Ed Davey. If you're even to the right of Jeremy Corbyn. We've seen Sir Keir Starmer compare people on the streets to those on the far right. But is this particularly hurtful for you? I mean, until very recently, you were a member of the Conservative Party. To be called a Nazi by your former colleagues must be doubly damaging.
Well, I simply think it's a very unconservative thing to do. This is not what Conservatives claim to behave. That's not the way that they do things. And yet to stoop to the gutter in this way, if you want to engage the battle of ideas, fine, engage in the battle of ideas. Say you don't agree with something. But to bring in, lazy gesture politics like this is unconservative, number one. And it, frankly, it just doesn't befit serious politicians. So it does go back to that level of discourse. What is going on in our politics today, where this becomes sort of acceptable and is laughed off, when in reality it reflects a sad decline in standards. And that is not what we should be doing, full stop, across the political spectrum.
Dr. Mendoza, I guess the counterpoint would be, well, we have freedom of speech, people should be able to take a joke. But I guess the point that you might make is that words can have consequences, particularly if this sense of othering your political opponents. If you call people Nazis, you compare them to Adolf Hitler, you could potentially put them in actual real world danger.
Yeah, I mean, there is that. There is obviously the sense that if you, as you say, other the opponent, make them seem beyond the pale politically, you can encourage, extreme reactions to them. But I think really it's just a lazy shortcut to, engaging in debate and discussion. If you lob that at someone, you've kind of tried to end the conversation, haven't you? You've gone, they're so bad that all I've got is this. But in reality, we all know that there are millions of reform voters out there, a number of whom used to be in the Conservative Party. So, for this to have been pushed out by the Conservative Party seems to me a bit of an own goal in trying to get those people back. The reality is that Reform voters are not Nazis. The Reform Party is not a Nazi party. And the very fact that we're debating this tells us how low politics has become, because rather than discussing the ideas and the big questions of the day, we're talking about meaningless labels when we should be talking about, indeed, the big questions coming up later this week.